while your brain is using ketones, ketones are like a diesel fuel compared to sugar would be like a nitrous fuel. So, you know, if you're running your car on nitrous, it's going to go fast and it's going to work well and it's going to speed up there. But it's going to run hot. It's going to get a bunch of toxins in it, and it's going to wear out fast, right?
Here they come. All right. Open the floodgates. Here we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for hopping on. Good to see everybody. Hey, there's Leslie. We started without you, Leslie. You're live.
Yay. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Well, we did it all by ourselves.
Yeah. It's even recording.
Good job, guys.
Did you get your eyeball taken?
No, not fully, but so if you see me doing some weird stuff, that's why.
Oh, well. Okay. I wonder if my internet's having issues again. I never really know until I hop on a Zoom call, and so but you guys broke up a little bit there. But anyways, I think we're good. We're good to good. So Leslie, what are we doing here? Greet everybody.
All right. Make sure my internet is working here. So again, I apologize that I'm a little bit behind. I got something in my eye. So today we're going to be talking about brain health and more so the sugar brain, because this comes up a lot when we talk about diabetes. And I actually was just listening to some other videos where people were just talking about how, number one, type 2 is becoming increasingly, I'm going to just say overwhelming. There are so many people who are diagnosed with type 2, but then also we're seeing a lot of people who are struggling with brain issues. And so I really wanted to talk about this today. And so I asked these guys if that would work. But I thought it'd be really good to just talk about what is happening to the brain when we have a type 2 diagnosis, and why is sugar such a big deal?
Okay, let me start with a disclaimer to say that I'm going to give general information for a broad audience, and it might apply to you and it might not apply to you. So you kind of have to, you may need to consult with a professional, for example, to determine if it's the right thing for you. So the brain, the brain is the most sensitive organ to everything, right? Your muscles, like when we used to do surgery, when I was in medical school, we did surgery on hands. We'd put a pressure cuff around, and you know how they pump it up super tight and cut off the circulation? Well, we would do that for like an hour or two while we're doing surgery on somebody's hand. We would have this blood pressure cuff on, and they would have no blood flow at all, zero going into their arm, their hand while we were doing surgery on it. The muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, the bones, yeah, they're fine. They don't need that much oxygen. But try that with your brain, right? Because put one around your neck and leave it there for an hour and see what happens. The brain just needs a constant supply. It's just every beat of the heart is getting 20% of all the blood to your brain. The rest of it goes to the rest of your body. So this is something that's really important. So what is the big deal about sugar, the sugar brain? It's because most of your brain can only run, can only run on sugar. Most of your brain needs a constant supply of sugar. And if it doesn't have sugar, then things don't work. Things don't work right. And type 2, then why is type 2 a big deal? I mean, think about it. People with type 2 have high blood sugar for years, like it's 200 plus. For years, it's way up there. And they go, well, that's a lot of sugar for the brain. The brain should be like swimming in it and going, oh, this is wonderful. All this sugar, it's great, right? Well, there's a couple of problems with that. Number one is all that excess sugar is toxic. It is actually toxic to have too much. And the constant supply of sugar causes inflammation in the brain, and it causes the brain to make toxins. And they're not bad toxins, they're just normal metabolites, but they build up to toxic levels. So anything that's toxic, almost anything. Mercury is toxic at like 5 atoms. So, but most things like alcohol is toxic at what a certain level, I don't know, 0.1, if you're blowing into the machine, right? But other things, even water can be toxic if you drink enough of it, right? So anything can be toxic. Sugar in the brain produces these metabolites that are toxic. And what you need to have periodically is to run on fat. So if you're using fat for energy, then your sugar is low and you're getting less sugar into the brain, but like half the brain, or it's actually a little more than that, can run on something that comes from the fat called ketones. So if you've ever heard of the ketogenic diet, and it's a very low carbohydrate diet. Well, if you've read our book, the Diabetes Solution Kit, then that first phase 1, is essentially a ketogenic diet. Why is that so important? Well, because while your brain is using ketones are like a diesel fuel compared to sugar would be like a nitrous fuel. So, if you're running your car on nitrous, it's going to go fast and it's going to work well and it's going to speed up there. But it's going to run hot. It's going to get a bunch of toxins in it, and it's going to wear out fast, right? Whereas when you're running like on diesel fuel, a diesel engine can go 1,000,000 miles, no problem, right? Why? Because it's a lower octane, lower heat fuel. Your brain is like that. Every once in a while, you need the brain to run on ketones. You need the blood sugar to go low so that most of your brain is running on ketones, so that you clean out, because that low octane fuel allows cleaning out of your brain. So it gets rid of all those toxins, gets rid of all that high octane fuel and that speed, and it just goes slowly and smoothly along. So people often will tell us they start on phase 1 and they're on this ketogenic diet, and they say, gosh, my brain seems a little slow. Yeah, that's one of the issues. And you know what? It gets better. It's not something that's persistent. It's not going to go on for a long time. And it's okay. And because that's when your brain can clean out. So that's number one. That's just one issue. The second issue with the blood sugar is that constant high level of sugar. You have a blood-brain barrier, and that barrier does not allow sugar to cross. It can't get across that barrier. So your brain is over here going, I need sugar, but the sugar can't get in. So what you have are these proteins called glucose transport proteins. And what they do is they reach through and they grab sugar and pull it in. And then they reach through, grab sugar, pull it in. And so your brain has a supply of sugar from these glucose transport proteins. What happens when you have high blood sugar for a long period of time, you have a ton of sugar over here, but those glucose transport proteins, there's fewer and fewer and fewer of them. So what happens is you, instead of having 100 glucose transport proteins pulling sugar in, Now you only have 10 pulling sugar in. So you have 1/10 as much sugar in your brain as you had when you had normal blood sugar. So I know it's kind of ironic, right? It's kind of weird that your brain is starving in a sea of sugar, like all that the brain just needs sugar, right? It just like craves it, and it's starving to death, and the cells literally die. And the cells that are most sensitive are the memory cells. So what is type 3 diabetes? You ever heard type 3 diabetes? It's just type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And why does that dementia happen? Because the brain is starving. That's the primary reason. That's number one. Excuse me. The second reason why is all those toxins that are building up, just like with Alzheimer's disease. You have those toxins building up. So type 2 is like devastating to the brain for two reasons: building up toxins and a lack of energy to the brain. So that's why type 2 is so important to get under control so you don't lose your brain function.
This is such good information. I want to quick show the diabetes solution kit because we talk about this a lot. He mentioned the different phases, and many of you already have this, but if you're new here, this is the book that he's talking about. So this is 3 different phases that you go through: phase 1, 2, 3, food plan, talking a lot about what it takes to reverse your type 2. And so you can find this, actually, if you just go to bartonwebinar.com, you'll find a link to all of the stuff that we will probably be talking about today, including a link to all of our past webinars. But make sure you get a copy of this. This is, everyone says, where do I start? What supplement can I take to start changing this? And whatever, Dr. Saunders will tell you, this is where you start. Unfortunately, he's one of those doctors who doesn't push supplements, which I know is so annoying. He wants you to actually change your diet and do the hard stuff, but because it works. And this is what he recommends to everyone that comes into his office who's looking to do the same thing. And so really good place to start. Get that. A lot cheaper than going to his office. I can tell you that right now. What is the price? $19.97 for this book? Did I make that up? Is that right, Joe?
That is right.
Okay, that is right. So really cheap. You can get hard copy if you want it right now. If you're like me and you're like, I need to get this right now, I can't wait. You can get it right now. You just get it in a downloadable format. Okay, so be sure to check that out. That's what Dr. Saunders is referencing. So good information, guys. Feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. We usually get a lot of questions. We like to spend at least half of our time together answering some of those questions. And I think I'm actually just going to jump in right here. This is a really good note from Debbie, and it's something that I can relate to. She says, I'm always sabotaging my progress. Is there something that I can do to stop?
Oh, yes. There's always something you can do. Having a guideline, and one of the advantages of having the book is if you follow the books very specifically, that's helpful. But when you're sabotaging your progress and gosh, I should be eating this, but gosh, they put that cupcake right in front of me. What am I gonna do? It's there, I'm gonna eat it. Those kinds of things are like you fall down and you get back up. And as long as you get back up as many times as you fall, then it's okay, because it's a process, not an event. On the other hand, there are things that you should look at if you're sabotaging your progress, and ask the question, why? Why is always a question. Someone comes into my office and says, I've been doing everything you said. I had one woman, I think I was working with her for like 18 months, and she had diabetes, and she was really overweight, and she said, gosh, these pills, these drugs are just, I have no energy. I can't take these drugs. I got to get off the drugs. I said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And I essentially put her on this, the diabetes solution kit, phase 1, right? So she's starting at phase 1. She comes back, she says, I'm doing everything right. And she didn't lose any weight. Her blood sugar didn't go down. Everything is the same. So then we tried something. We tried adding something else. We tried a different, I finally got so exasperated. I'm like, why aren't you losing weight? She said, because I don't want to. I'm like, that's why you're here. I mean, that's what we're working on. She goes, no, I didn't come here to lose weight. I came off to get off the medication. I said, well, you're not going to get off the medications unless you lose weight. And she's like, no. She said, no, I saw a show of a guy that lost 100 pounds and his chin was saggy and his arms were saggy and his belly flopped over. She said, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to have saggy skin. And I'm not going to lose weight. I said, well, you're not him. You're younger. You have some elastin in your skin. Your skin will, stretch back in. Will come back to. She goes, no, I don't want to look like that. I'm not going to lose any weight. So she essentially went back to her doctor and stayed on her drugs and didn't do anything. Asking the question, why is it not working for you? Or why do you sabotage it? Or I had one case of a woman, and she was only Spanish speaking. Her family from Mexico. And she was very overweight and had diabetes. So we started working on it, and she was doing great. She lost about 10 pounds. Her family sat her down and said, you need to eat. And when she came back and told me that, I'm like, wait a minute, you're 250 pounds. You don't need to eat. You've got a lot of extra. And they were so worried about her losing weight, like, because to them that means she has cancer or she's dying or something. That you can't lose weight because that's bad. Losing weight is bad. There's reasons outside why you might be sabotaged, and there's reasons inside. I had one woman who, again, this was a weight thing. She said she started getting panic attacks when she lost some weight. And I said, well, why are you getting panic attacks? She thought about it for a second, and she said, the fat protects me. It's my barrier. It's my protection. And I'm like, oh, that's why the panic attacks. That makes sense. So if you're sabotaging your progress, it would be a good idea to start asking the question why. And if you need help, go to a therapist and start asking the question why, because there's probably something either internal or external that is pushing you in the direction of I need to stay this way. I can't make this change.
Another thing too, this might not be it, of course, but we have found that some people who watch this webinar coming back each week, being a part of this weekly webinar in this community, and even letting us know their progress keeps them accountable. So if that's something that could help, consider that as well. And we love to hear how you're doing. So always update us. And you will find great support here. There's a lot of people here who are on this same journey. And so in fact, Anku is saying hello. He has an amazing story. And you can find all of those if you go to Barton webinar. You'll find some really good links. There's information on stress, all sorts of webinars that we've done that may be helpful as well.
But even if you're not doing it perfectly, even if you've fallen down or something, you can share that and go, I'm trying really hard here. And
Yes.
This is really hard.
Yep.
And you can ask questions, about, this is hard for me. It's hard for me to eat this way. And what other things can I do? What other options are there? Because In 30 years of doing this, I've seen not all, maybe not everything, but I may have had that problem before and dealt with it.
Yes. All right. Thanks for sharing and thank you for asking that. Let's see.
I think we're
Debbie
having,
also-
real quick, are we having issues with Zoom technology? Maybe like people can't put in the chat anymore?
Yes. Okay. So
I
this
can't.
happened last week
Yeah.
also. And I'm not sure what's going on. It's funny because I didn't get a notification to update my Zoom, but I'm going to I will do that. Guys, if you have anything that you would normally put in the chat, feel free to put that in the Q&A. Not sure why it's not working today. So we'd love to hear from you. We didn't try to shut it off on you. We're not sure what's going on. So post it in the Q&A, even if you just want to say hi, that's great. Okay. Debbie, so Dr. Saunders often mentions a 6-10 reset, and that you can find information about that on our past webinars as well. But what that means is to stop eating by 6 and go to bed by 10. That's the quick version of it. Debbie is asking, when doing the 6 p.m. fast and the 10 p.m. to bed, can I take my meds and supplements before I go to bed, or should I take them at dinner?
It's better to take them at dinner. Some medications like thyroid, if you're taking thyroid, that's best on an empty stomach. Most supplements should be taken with food. Remember, the supplements are food, they are nutrients, and they're often absorbed better when you take them with food. Vitamin D, for example, is a fat soluble vitamin. And if you take it with fat, then you absorb that better than if you don't. So yeah, take them with a meal. That would be better anyway.
Great. Our friend Vilo says hello, better than ever.
Can I just add something to that? So I just thought of another issue, and that is some people are taking certain supplements like magnesium, calm before bed, and to make them sleepy. And so you may not want to take that at 6 o'clock at night. In which case, if you're doing the 6-10 reset and you have you're taking a magnesium supplement with a little bit of water, that's fine. That's not going to be an issue at all.
Okay. Gail says, my doctor found a bleeding knot on my brain. They never said it came from sugar. They tried to say it was a stroke, but they weren't sure. I had surgery, but I am well now.
Okay, so bleeding is a ruptured blood vessel, and bleeding happens all the time in every person, in every animal. We pop blood vessels all the time, and it's not something that rarely happens. If you look at rat poison is blood thinner, because the rat's going to run around and pop a blood vessel at some point and then bleed to death and die because you can't stop the blood. That's the way the system works. And so what we have are clotting mechanisms to stop that. So if it happens in the brain, it can be a stroke. It can be devastating, but it's not necessarily related to diabetes, because broken blood vessels happen, and it's not necessarily aneurysms either. Sometimes it is. But have you ever seen people that have like bright red on their eyeballs where the whites of their eyes are normally? That's just a popped blood vessel underneath the conjunctival membrane. And it's so bright. It's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with your eye? And it's just a popped blood vessel, and there's nothing wrong with it. And it gets reabsorbed in a week or two, and then you're done. But yeah, we all pop blood vessels. But it's not necessarily related to blood sugar.
Okay, right. Interesting. This is a weird side note, but I have seen some people that are now tattooing the whites of their eyes.
Oh yeah,
that's very bizarre to me.
Ooh, so that gives me the willies.
And ow, is that not incredibly painful? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's see. We have Anonymous says, I am a diabetic and I have 2 questions about eating. 1, if I find a snack that is healthy and have it in the afternoon, is it better to eat it all at once or should I spread it out over a few hours during the afternoon? We've
Oh,
had this question before, I think.
That's a great question. And here's why. Because we were taught, like in medical school, and even they're teaching nutritionists and everybody, you should eat 5 small meals a day with snacks in between so that you never have an empty stomach, right? Spread it out, have a small amount frequently. That is the single worst advice you can give to a human being. Well, jumping off a building, okay, jump off a building, that's worse. The second worst advice you can give is to eat 5 small meals a day with snacks in between so you never have an empty stomach. Okay, so the answer to your question, the simple answer is eat it all at once, and then allow your stomach to empty out. Having an empty stomach between meals is super important. It's what allows your digestive juices to reset. It allows your stomach to reset. It allows your intestines to clean out between meals. This is important stuff. So yes, eat a meal, let your stomach empty out. Give it 4 or 5 hours, and then eat another meal, and then let your stomach empty out. Give it 4 or 5 hours. That's the way.
Okay, I'm gonna, Anonymous has another question, but I want to ask this. Some people might be new or maybe don't fully understand what eating sugar is. What types of foods have sugar? All of them. And what would be some, for example, we get this question a lot. People think they're eating really healthy, low carb when they eat fruit. Is that an option?
Yeah, it depends on the fruit. Tropical fruits are very high in sugar. Mango, pineapple, oranges, they're really high in sugar, whereas fruits like peppers and cucumbers are very low in sugar. So it depends on the fruit, of course. Avocados are super low in sugar. So it depends on what you're eating. And that's why, like when you go in the diabetes solution kit and you look at what kinds of things you can eat, there's lists of, okay, this is about how much sugar you have in an apple. If you have a large apple, you're going to get 20 grams of sugar. You're done for the day. That's all you get, because yes, there's fiber in there, and all of that stuff is really healthy, and the fiber is really healthy. But our purpose is not to eat healthy. The purpose of phase 1 is to detox. And detox from what? Well, primarily from sugar, because that's the primary issue. But we're really ideally detoxing from sugar, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So all of them. And so yes, if you eat fiber, there's a lot of free foods on there, and eating more of the free foods that are very low in sugar and fats and protein is a good idea too.
I'm always just amazed at the foods that sugar has been added to. For example, like marinara sauces, your spaghetti sauces, stuff like that.
Yeah,
sugar to all of that kind of stuff.
I know. And gravy now is like a ton of sugar in gravy of all things. You wouldn't expect it, but it's there.
Well, and it's, protein bars, granola bars, lots of things that are supposed to be healthy for us. There's a lot of sugar in them, and so we just always have to here. It's good to read labels. Okay. The second question from Anonymous is another good question. If I eat something that has 17 grams of carbs with 10 grams of fiber for a net carb of 7, is this the same as eating something with 17 grams of carbs with 0 fiber for a net of 17 carbs, but having a drink with the meal that has 10 grams of fiber?
Oh, interesting. Okay. So the answer is no. Yes, the fiber's good. Yes, the fiber's helpful, because the fiber, and I think what you're getting to is that fiber lowers the glycemic load or the glycemic index of food. So like watermelon has very little fiber and a lot of sugar, and has a very high glycemic index. The sugar is absorbed rapidly, and so you get a sugar rush from watermelon. Whereas if you eat the same amount of sugar in like apricots, depending on where you're from, someone told me there are no apes in apricot trees. Anyway, if you eat the same amount of sugar in an apricot, you're getting a lot of fiber with it. And so it's gradually absorbed. And so you don't have that super spike like you would with watermelon. Okay, so you're eating, the issue here then is on phase 1, you get 20 grams of carbohydrates or sugar a day. And in one case, you've eaten 7 grams. And in the other case, you've eaten 17 grams. So the where you've eaten 17 grams, you've come really close to your limit. Whereas with the 7, you have a little more leeway in there. So the simple way is just to say, take the total carbs, subtract the fiber, and then whatever's left over is what you're counting as part of your 20.
Okay. Joe, it looks like your chat is working. You're there, you're live. So
Great.
your
Can
update
anyone
must
else chat? Or am I the only one that can chat?
I'm going to guess that I need to update my Zoom so that everyone else can. I don't know, but actually, yeah, I'm not sure. So
I bet you're right.
I'll figure it out. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
If I show any signs of disappointment on my face, I got a little sidebar. It's kind of funny. So I found this chocolate that I like. It's this Belgian 72% cacao probiotic chocolate. And I went through a bag. This was in my garbage. It lasted me a good 6 months. So it's not like I'm eating this whole thing. But I opened it up and they're smaller now. They made they're individually wrapped and like, what the heck? I'm getting ripped off. So, but it's the same overall ounces, but they're making smaller portion sizes, which I guess is a good thing, maybe. Anyways, I'll get over it.
Carry on, Joe.
Yes. Sorry to hear about that. Fun fact.
Thank you.
Fun fact, I do hear that if you're someone who craves chocolate, which I feel like I did for most of my life, they say that you might be deficient in magnesium. Ever heard of that, Dr. Saunders? Or did I just hear that? Okay.
Yes, I have. Craving, okay. Craving, but it's not necessarily that.
Yeah, right.
I take so much magnesium that I've proven that wrong myself. So
I figured. I know you use good magnesium, so that's probably not your case. But it is always kind of fun to think about those things, you know, why we do crave certain things or why we're wanting them. Or, you know, wasn't it pregnant women sometimes will crave dirt? And that's typically because they're lacking certain things. And so
there's a lot of iron in this.
Called pica.
Iron. Yeah. That's a good way to get it. Eat chocolate.
Yeah,
dark chocolate.
That's all I heard. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Roy says, so when I fast for about 4 to 5 days, I start to feel foggy in my thinking. I'm looking to fast for about a full week or 2. Should I just push through to my goal, or is there something that I should be aware of? The first few days of my fast, it seems my thinking seems sharp, but later I struggle. What's up?
Okay. That is a great question. And I may have an answer for you. And that is, there was some research done on rats, and they were diabetic rats, and they gave them insulin to lower their blood sugar to 40, and they kept their blood sugar at 40. And while they were with this really low blood sugar, they were like laying around. They were really unhappy rats, right? They're not doing anything because they probably have headaches and fatigue and all that stuff. So but on the 3rd day, the rats started getting up and running on their treadmill and doing all their normal stuff. So then the researchers did a biopsy of their blood-brain barrier. We're talking about the brain today, right? And there were 10 times the number of glucose transport proteins that pull the sugar into the brain. 10 times, not just one or two more. It was a lot more. So, so you have these rats who were kind of not feeling good for 3 days, and then they start feeling normal, or at least acting normal. Because why? Because that's how long it takes for the body to regulate and make all those extra glucose transport proteins and install them where they're supposed to be so that they can start working to bring sugar into the brain. So I think the answer to your question is to push through. And it works. And a lot of people have done this who do fasting, because you usually find that the first 3 days are hard. You know, your blood sugar gets low, you get hangry. But after 3 days, it's like, wow, I feel great, because that's when you start burning fat. And then you have those ketones. And then your brain is start working again on ketones, and you're increasing the number of glucose transport proteins. So for all those reasons, pushing through is a good idea. Now, for some of you, it's going to be like, oh no, I can't function on that. I can't work. I can't, I have kids I have to take care of. I can't be laying in bed with a headache and fatigue. So the other option, instead of pushing through, is to take little increments at a time. So you fast for 12 hours, and then you fast for 18 hours, and then you fast for 24 hours, eat one meal a day, and you get to one meal a day, and you're okay. And then you get to, you can fast for a day and a half, and then 2 days. So you just increase it incrementally, until you become accustomed to running your brain on ketones, and your body has to learn how to burn fat, because with the high blood sugar all the time, it doesn't burn fat. So for all those reasons, you could either push through, or you can incrementally work up to a longer fast.
Okay, good information. Okay, I got to give you this update here. This is from our friend, Brian Trusty, who I got to meet with and hear his story. It was so awesome. If any of you would like to chat about your story and let me know how you're doing, I would just love it. So email me, leslie@bartonpublishing.com. But Brian's giving us an update here. He says, hi, he is through phase 1 and phase 2, up to 40 grams of carbs, quit metformin 6 weeks ago. At 160 pounds, blood sugar tests are from 103 to 110, which is phenomenal, by the way. Congratulations, Brian. That is so awesome. Am I okay to stay in this range, or should I go back to phase 1? Cut back for 3 days. Okay, I think he's saying I cut back for 3 days and there's been no change.
Yeah. So the next step is to see where you are. So the next step is to get some blood tests done. And that would be an insulin level, C-peptide level, hemoglobin A1C, you already have it, and your blood sugar. So the hemoglobin A1C gives you more of a long-term, like a 3-month average, whereas the blood sugar you're using, you're checking is immediate, just at that moment, 110. So 110 after a meal is okay. Fasting, ideally, you really want to be between 70 and 90. So if your fasting blood glucose is consistently over 100, go back to phase 1, and just, that's okay. You can go back and forth, and until it gets down into the 120s. But you may want to check to see if your pancreas is working, making insulin. That's why the C-peptide test. Yeah.
Good stuff. Fun to get an update, Brian. Thank you. Let's see. Another good question from Barbara. What are some of the good fruits to eat that are low in sugar?
Okay. Well, Well, the great ones are peppers and cucumbers, tomatoes, avocados. Those are, the better ones. If you look at like apricots are pretty good. Berries tend to be really low in sugar with high fiber. So that's a good choice too, berries.
All right. Let's see. William says, oops, I missed the beginning of that message. Okay, let me start over here. Vilo says, we take magnesium. Oh, shoot, it keeps moving. We take magnesium and apple cider vinegar a couple hours before bed. Is that good? We said yes to magnesium, apple cider vinegar.
And apple cider vinegar. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good deal. Let's see. Ruth takes Cinechroma and the turmeric BP. Awesome, Ruth. Let us know how that is going. It says never mind, she did. She lost 15 pounds and her blood sugar marker went from 6.7 down to 6 and 5.6 or under. Wow. Ruth says she takes berberine 3 times a day with meals and have cut down on carbs, but I am on Meals on Wheels. So I'm not quite down to 20 carbs a day, but I have normal blood sugar.
Wow. Good.
That's awesome. So, yeah, great job. Keep it up, Ruth. Okay. Let's see. The question we get a lot, is stevia a free artificial sweetener?
Try to avoid the taste of sweet. That would be a very good thing to do. Don't eat sweet things just because the taste of sweet raises insulin and increases insulin resistance. So yeah, avoid stevia.
Okay. Let's see. Ernest says, what if I am small from the start? Can I eat a little more or what?
In other words, if he's thin, is
yes.
that small? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
And what is a good number? That's a great question. What are good numbers to have?
For what good numbers for weight?
Blood sugar.
For blood sugar. Yeah. Okay. So if you're in the United States using the United States numbers, milligrams per deciliter, a good blood sugar is between 70 and 90. And then after eating, it can get up to 110, 120. But fasting blood sugar should be between 70 and 90. If you're in Canada, it's between 4 and 5. That's they use a different scale there. So if you're thin and you don't want to lose weight, the phase 1 allows you to eat enough to keep the weight on without getting the extra carbohydrates. So yes, you can eat a little more so that you don't lose weight because you don't want to lose weight. And yet you can get the very low carbs will allow you to burn fat for energy, so that you can still maintain your weight and have low blood sugar.
All right. Okay, another question that we get quite often is, why is my blood sugar low at night and then high in the morning?
Okay, so there are so many factors involved in blood sugar. There's a lot of hormones. There's a lot of things involved in what your blood sugar is. It's not about just what you ate, that moment, but that will affect it, but that's not the only thing. So if your blood sugar starts dropping low at night, your pancreas is automatically going to make glucagon, and glucagon is going to tell your liver, hey, make more sugar. And then your liver is going to make your sugar go up. And since you're insulin resistant, then instead of going up to 90 or 100, it keeps going up to 110 or 120. But that's the liver making extra blood sugar putting out extra sugar so that your brain has enough sugar to run on, and your heart and your kidneys and your nerves.
Okay, a couple questions about fasting. Michael's wondering, now you mentioned this already, but Michael's wondering how you feel about fasting for type 2. And then Catherine also said, I thought fasting was bad for a diabetic. So anything you want to add?
Okay, so why is fasting bad for diabetics? Well, the problem is that we have the name diabetes for two very different illnesses. One is type 1 diabetes, where you don't make any insulin at all. And then you have, which is a disease of not enough. And if you don't have insulin, then your cells are starving. So you don't want to fast in that kind of a situation. But then you have another type 2 diabetes that is a disease of too much. Too much of what? Too much of everything. Too much fat, too much insulin, too much carbohydrate, too much protein. So with all this too much, what's the best way to do that? Well, detox. So clean it out. How do you clean out? Well, you stop putting things into it, first of all. So fasting makes a whole lot of sense for people who have type 2 and are toxic on all these things. And you want to detox, and detox requires an empty stomach. And the longer you have an empty stomach, the better. And that's pretty much what every study has shown. You live longer, you get less problems with heart disease, less problems with kidney disease, brain functions better, everything works better, everything improves during the time that you have an empty stomach. So that mistake is often made. Oh no, I have diabetes, I should never fast. Actually, it applies to people who are starving to death because their pancreas doesn't make any insulin.
Okay, question from Alan. Why spray magnesium versus a gel tab?
Well, the gel tab might be just as good, but we looked at options, and the spray was available, and there's plenty of magnesium. You can get magnesium anywhere in a pill form, and the spray wasn't as available. And the other part is that people who take pills often get diarrhea. And so we just kind of looked at what our options were and say, you know what, you don't have to get a pill from us. You can get that anywhere. But the spray is a little harder to find. So the spray we have is an option for people who they take magnesium and get diarrhea, for example.
Okay, another good question.
Quick question on the magnesium. Does that, when you spray it on your skin, does your body absorb it faster than if it goes in through your digestive tract?
Not necessarily. No, yeah. It does. It gets absorbed gradually over time.
Okay.
It's not something that absorbs right away.
Okay.
A really good question here from Alan. He's asking, are there glucose transfer proteins in a bottle?
In a bottle? No, those are made by your body, and they're unique to you. And you're the only one that has that particular protein that particular way. So no, they have to be made by your cells, and they'll be regulated up and down depending on how much sugar there is and how much the brain needs on the other side. So yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay. Vila says, what are the best liquids other than water that we can use while fasting for long periods of time?
Okay. Okay. Very good question. So if you've ever heard of the master cleanse, Dr. John Christopher he was a famous herbologist, herbal doctor. And he was really famous. Like, he worked for the army, and he had a lot of clients everywhere, and he traveled a lot. Anyway, so he had this cleanse called a master cleanse. It's a quart of water, a lemon squeezed in, a 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and 2 tablespoons of
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup. Yeah. And so that's the lemonade mixture. But think about how much is in there. There's very little in there. And so that was his master cleanse. People would do that for 30 days. They would drink just that and eat nothing for 30 days. And that's essentially fasting, right? It's not, you're not getting a whole lot of calories that way. I don't usually recommend that because it's sugar, right? Because we already have an overload of sugar. So actually, most people that I start on in my practice on bone broth, if it's not just water, they drink broth. Why? Why broth, or why bone broth? Bone broth because it has all the minerals in it. It has calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and then it also has a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat and almost no carbohydrates at all. So I think broth is a good, if you're going to fast for like long periods. I did 2 weeks with just drinking broth twice a day, 16 ounces twice a day, and then maybe a little water in between. And that was really easy. It actually does make it easy. Juice, there's juice cleanses of all kinds. And I've seen a lot of them. If you have your own juicer, wow, that's awesome. And you do celery juice. I had somebody do that drank celery juice and cleared up her, it was psoriasis, but got better just juicing. So yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do. But what I would recommend, since we're talking about diabetes, is something low in carbs. So if you're going to juice, something like vegetable juice, celery juice, if you're, or a broth.
Okay. Here's a really good note. I think this came from William. I wanted to share about my neighbor Ken. We met a few months ago when I was walking dogs, and they were out walking too. They mentioned how walking keeps me in shape, and I told them about reversing my type 2 diabetes. He has it too. When I told him about your diabetes solution kit and recommended Cinechroma and turmeric BP, I saw him again yesterday and asked him how he was doing. He said his A1C was 7.5 and it's now 6.3. His doctor cut his metformin prescription in half. He feels a lot more energy now. Ken plans to keep going, and I reminded him to use the 610 protocol with phase 1, and he will continue to lose weight and his diabetes. I don't know what supplements he's taking other than berberine. And at this point, William, I feel like, you could probably run the webinar. You totally just taught somebody everything they needed to do, and that is so awesome. Great job. And William, you've always kind of been like a teacher, so so cool.
Yeah, and that drop in hemoglobin A1C is really significant. That's from clearly diabetic to non-diabetic. He's gone into the pre-diabetes stage for hemoglobin A1C. So that's great. That's really good work.
That's
so
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let us know. Hopefully he can watch the webinars. We'd love to hear from him, or feel free to have him send me an email, leslie@bartonpublishing.com. I'd love to chat with him. So good job, William. Look at you. You're changing the world. One dog walking neighbor at a time. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome. That's part of the community aspect that's so important, in just sharing with others your own success, and celebrate those successes, and other people are inspired and they'll take action too. So keep up the good work.
So
love to hear that. Keep sharing those stories with us. Leslie, you can tell them about the special opportunity as well.
I did. I mentioned that earlier.
Okay.
But I'll post my email address in here too, guys. If you want to share your story, we would love to hear it. That it really motivates all of us. The team loves to hear about how you guys are doing, and mostly me. Mostly I love it the most. But I'd love to hear
one of the key metrics in our company is.
Did we lose him?
Testimonials. Yeah. I know that we're actually making a difference in people's lives. So. Did
We
I cut
lost
out?
most of that.
Oh,
But yeah, it's one of the,
Yeah.
what he was saying, one of the key metrics, one of the things that we really like to work on, keep track of, check on, is to make sure that we have people who are telling us about their success, because we want to make sure that what we're doing is making a difference for you guys. Because if it's not, then it doesn't matter. Then why are we doing it? Right.
Right.
So awesome. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Anku, I'm very happy each time I join the webinar. So much to learn. Anku, you're the best. And I would agree. I learn so much on these webinars too, every single time. All right. Milo and Barbie, they've been killing it with the diabetes solution kit and reversing their type 2, but they hold each other accountable by, they go from phase 3 to phase 1 as they hold each other accountable. So must be when their numbers get off or something, then they just go back to phase 1. And that's the beauty of this program, is that you know what to do when you've gotten past phase 1. So if you get into trouble, you just go back and do it again. And it's a lot easier.
Yep.
Okay, it says, my doctor said to me, you probably won't ever be insulin dependent. What does that mean?
Insulin dependent means that your pancreas doesn't make enough insulin, so you have to inject insulin in order to get sugar into your cells. And so a lot of doctors had been saying over the years that type 2 diabetes becomes type 1 diabetes over time. In other words, you start off with too much insulin, and then your pancreas poops out and you quit making insulin. It turns out that's not that common. So your doctor's probably saying that your pancreas isn't going to poop out and stop making insulin.
All right. Krish has a couple questions. You had mentioned previously certain fibers trap gas and thus unwanted bloating occurs. In general, which fibers are good and which ones are not as desirable?
That depends on the bacteria. So it's all different. Everybody's so different. You know, a dog can identify you by the bacteria in your intestines. 10 years after the dog met you, can know who you are by your smell because of the different bacteria, because you're different than anybody else. It's like a fingerprint. No two people are exactly alike. So some people eat beans, they get gas. Why? Because the fiber in the beans, the bacteria in their intestines, they're not digesting, they're missing an enzyme or don't have an enzyme that breaks down that starch. So it goes into the large intestine and starts making gas. Other people eat broccoli and they get gas. But you know, most people tolerate broccoli and don't get gas. So that is not a food thing or a fiber thing specifically. It's really your individual bacteria in your intestines. That's what happens to you. So I had just a story about a guy that I knew as a friend, actually, and he was East Asian, and he didn't make an enzyme in his intestine to digest milk, but he liked ice cream. So what he would do is take just a quarter of a teaspoon of ice cream every day, to have a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until he was able to tolerate it. So what's interesting is we can induce the enzymes that break down, well, milk, for example, or the starch in beans, for example. You can take the enzyme called BINO, right? That's just an enzyme. Or you can make the enzyme in your intestines by eating small amounts of beans frequently, and then increasing the amount so that your intestines start making more of that enzyme. It's actually really cool.
Krish is also asking, it appears that gluten and lectin are brothers, and both can cause havoc more or less in the same manner. One can avoid gluten by avoiding gluten-rich foods, but how do you avoid lectins?
Okay. There's a lot of misinformation out there around lectins. And the reality is some lectins are extremely toxic. If you took just a handful of red beans and ate them raw, you could have a bad reaction and even die from the toxicity of those lectins in the one handful of red beans. So people take that as, oh, lectins are bad. They bind the the lining of your intestines has cells on it, and there's glycoproteins that those lectins bind to and prevent the cells from regenerating, from reproducing. So what happens is you start getting holes and you start getting leaky gut from having lectins all the time. So what do? Well, you soak your beans and then you cook them well. You cook some of the food well. You don't avoid lectins. People have been eating beans for whatever thousands of years. And actually, if you look at the longest lived people, beans is generally a part of their diet. So, you can't say lectins are bad. Lectins are too much lectins. Yes, they're toxic, but lectins are also a signaling device. When they bind to those, the lining of the intestines, they signal something. These are the nutrients that are going to be available. And your intestines can absorb certain things or make certain enzymes depending on what lectins are there. So they're not all bad, and you don't want to avoid them. You want to make sure you soak your beans and cook them thoroughly. Okay, that's important. Most foods, it's not going to be an issue. But one more thing, and that is between meals, leave about 4 or 5 hours between meals. If you do that, then your intestines clean out all the lectins from your previous meal. And then your cells can reproduce and your lining can come back and you don't have leaky gut and everything functions well again for your next meal. So giving some time between eating is the best way to deal with that.
Awesome. Okay, that's it for today. Dr. Saunders gets to go be with his patients. Thank you so much for being here once again.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next week.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye. We'll see if we
Good job,
can answer
everyone.
some of these.
Well, easy
We'll see if we can answer any of these additional questions here. Some of these we can't, but we might be able to help.
What is phase 1? Did we get to that one yet?
No, we actually did talk about that, but the diabetes solution kit, Raul, if you are not familiar, you can find that here in the diabetes solution kit, which you can find at bartonwebinar.com. There are 3 phases that Dr. Saunders has laid out in this system, and it's mostly a low carb. The first part is a low carb plan. So eating 20 net carbs per day. And it talks about what that means, and everything that goes into phase 1 is right inside of this. I think Joe has one too.
I just had a funny thought. Who do you most look like of these people on our cover? I think I'm a combination of this guy right here and her. Turn her into a bald guy, and that's me. So that was very random, but
That's
yeah,
funny.
we have diversity on our cover and our team and our customers. Oh boy, it's time for me to go, I think.
You're good. You're good.
What else can we help people with here? So we answered phase 1.
Some of these I'm not sure that I can do. Questions about salt or lower sodium electrolytes. I think we're going to talk about, I actually have that on a list to talk about with Dr. Saunders. So I'm hoping we can do a webinar even on dehydration, water, salt, that kind of thing. So we will talk about that soon, or hop on next week and ask that question. That would be great.
Someone asked about fiber greens. We are currently still out of stock. I have like 3 bottles at my house, and that is it. So not in the warehouse yet. hopefully coming next month, but we've had several delays, missing ingredients at the manufacturer. So hope to get those out very soon. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, it's good. We need that. We need it back. Okay, Lupita says your webinars are making a difference. Please keep them coming. Hubby and I are on Meals on Wheels. He is diabetic. I was pre-diabetic, but I am now normal. Our doctor advised us to be careful with me at Meals on Wheels because they have way too many carbs, too much bread and juices. We don't eat the bread or drink the juices either. We're taking baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah, probably better just to eat less, only eat the protein and fat on there, the veggies, all that, but avoid the juices and breads and other carbs.
And often you can find protein. I mean, not as much as you probably want, but if you're doing low carb, you know, if you're getting some type of a sandwich or a burger or whatever, assuming you're not vegan, it's easy to just take that protein and eat that, just like you've been doing, avoiding the bread, you're avoiding the juices. It sounds like you know what you're doing, so that is awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anku, so good to hear. I feel like you're here with me. I can't see you, but it feels like I know what you look like, so it feels like you're here. Let's see. Can I get the digital diabetes kit? I have the book, but do better reading the digital due to macular degeneration. Okay. So probably the easiest way to do that, guys, would be you can obviously go order it right at bartonwebinar.com, or if you want to send an email to our support team, they can help you figure out the best way to do that as well. So support@bartonpublishing.com.
Yeah, most likely if you bought the printed version of the book, you also have access to the digital copy already. So it's either in your email somewhere, or send an email to our support team and they can look up your order and then send you that download link for you. So
I would like to help you, but it will take me forever to figure it out. So it's faster to have somebody else do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Vilo says, FYI, we too have introduced your program based on our success. You guys are awesome. Oh, you guys. You know what? Anytime I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to jump on the
webinar. Yeah, I was just going to share, like, if anybody's here and they're struggling or having a hard time with this or feeling like discouraged because they're not making progress, I just want to encourage you to just stick with it and just know that, you know, as long as you keep trying, you're going to experience breakthroughs. It might be small progress and you might have a little setbacks, but just don't give up. You know, don't try to be perfect, but look back at the progress that you're making, and also realize that I just had this realization last week, actually. So I was gone all last week at a kids camp. We every summer we do a week-long kids camp with foster kids. My wife is the director of Royal Family Kids Camp in the Sioux Empire here in South Dakota. And the revelation I had, I don't know if it's a revelation, but was like, it was a really hard week, you know, because you're with kids all day long. And these are kids that have, you know, trauma and abuse and neglect issues in their past, and foster care and adoption and all that. And they're awesome kids. We love it. We treat them like royalty. That's why they call it Royal Family. But like, we had to give 100% of it. And it was hard, like exhausting. Like that first day is 95 degrees outside. We're chasing kids around ages 6 to 12. But like, it was also so rewarding. Like that whole week, it's my favorite week of the year. But it just, the realization is like, sometimes the hard work, and it takes hard work to experience the really good stuff in life. And so ask yourself this question, you know, is there a reason why, first of all, why do I have diabetes? But second of all, why did I get introduced to this Barton company? And like, you know, what is it? Ask yourself why, and what is it that you can learn from this? How can you grow as a person? What can you overcome? And just think about, as you overcome this health issue, what are other things in your life that maybe you'll be able to have more confidence in to overcome, whether it's relationship issues or other stress things or whatever. So like, just keep at it and look for the diamonds in the rough and the diamonds under pressure, and don't give up. So that's my word of the day.
So good. Thank you, Joe, for that.
Yes.
Always very encouraging. And
not always, but sometimes.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
That's all right. Good. Well, I got to get to my workout here. So.
Hey, I already did mine.
Oh, all right.
All right.
It's
all right, guys.
All right.
You all are awesome. Come back next week. Tell a friend. Let us know if you told a friend. Maybe I'll send you something. You never know. It could happen.
Yeah.
I just made that up. Joe's like, no, I didn't say you could do that.
Oh, you can send people stuff.
Leslie at bartonpublishing.com if you want to chat, because I'd love to hear from you and hear how you're doing. So we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, everyone. Peace out.
Bye.